What if I told you that the secret to being truly seen, valued, and pursued in love is to stop trying so hard? Sounds impossible, right? But Carl Jung, the master of the human psyche, knew this truth. When you pull back your energy and choose yourself, you don't just attract love, you become magnetic. Today, we're diving deep into how to shift your energy, set unshakable boundaries, and unlock the kind of love you deserve without ever chasing. And trust me, you'll want to stay until the end for a personal story that flipped everything I thought I knew about relationships. Ready to stop chasing and start shining? Let's dive in. Have you ever found yourself constantly texting someone, checking if they've seen your stories, or going out of your way to make sure they feel cared for, only to realize they're not giving you the same energy back? If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. Most of us have fallen into the trap of overgiving, pouring our heart, time, and energy into someone, hoping they'll see our worth. But here's the hard truth. The more you give without receiving, the less they value you. And Carl Jung, the brilliant mind behind modern psychology, had a name for this: projection. Carl Jung taught us that we often project our inner desires, fears, and worth onto others. When you're constantly available, always texting first, always checking in, always making yourself emotionally accessible, you're not just giving love, you're giving away your power. You're feeding their ego, making them the center of your world, while your own light dims in the process. It's not because you lack value. It's because you're not giving them the chance to miss you, to chase you, or to truly see you. Let's paint a picture. Meet Lisa, a 32-year-old graphic designer who was head over heels for a guy named Mark. Lisa was the kind of woman who'd send thoughtful good morning texts, plan dinner dates, and even rearrange her schedule to fit Mark's last-minute plans. She thought, if I show him how much I care, he'll see how special I am. But the more she gave, the less Mark reciprocated. He'd reply hours later, cancel plans without much explanation, and only reach out when it was convenient for him. Lisa felt invisible, like her efforts were fading into thin air. Sound familiar? Here's where Carl Jung's idea of projection comes in. Lisa wasn't just giving Mark her time and attention, she was projecting her own desire to be loved and valued onto him. She believed that by pouring all her energy into him, he'd mirror that love back. But instead, she was feeding his ego, making him feel secure in her presence without ever needing to step up. Carl Jung would say Lisa was caught in a cycle of unconscious giving, acting from a place of fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of losing him, fear of being forgotten, and that fear kept her stuck in a one-sided dynamic. The trap of overgiving isn't just about what you're doing, it's about why you're doing it. Are you giving because you genuinely want to, or because you're afraid of what happens if you stop? Carl Jung's work reminds us that when we give too much without receiving, we're not acting from love. We're acting from a pattern, one often rooted in our unconscious need for validation. And here's the kicker. The more you give to someone who doesn't reciprocate, the more you teach them that your energy is limitless, that they don't need to earn it. You become predictable, and in their eyes, less valuable. So, what happens when you stop overgiving? Something incredible. You create a void, a space, where their ego used to thrive on your attention, and that void forces them to confront what they've been taking for granted. Let's go back to Lisa. One day, after another cancelled plan, she decided enough was enough. She stopped texting Mark first. She stopped liking his posts or checking his stories. She didn't block him or make a big scene, simply redirected her energy to herself. She signed up for a painting class, started journaling her thoughts, and spent evenings with friends who made her laugh. At first it felt uncomfortable, like she was losing control. But then something shifted. A week later, Mark texted her, asking why she'd been so quiet. 2 weeks later, he was planning a dinner to catch up. By stepping back, Lisa had flipped the dynamic. She wasn't chasing anymore, was being chased. This is the power of breaking the cycle of overgiving. When you stop pouring your energy into someone who doesn't reciprocate, you're not just reclaiming your time, you're reclaiming your worth. You're telling the world and yourself that your love, your attention, your energy are not free. They're valuable, and they come with boundaries. Carl Jung's concept of projection teaches us that when we stop projecting our need for validation onto others, we start to find it within ourselves. And that shift? It's magnetic. So, how do you escape the trap of overgiving? Here are 3 practical steps to start today. Audit your energy. Take a moment to reflect on your relationships. Write down all the ways you're giving texting first, planning dates, always being available. Then ask yourself, is this being reciprocated? If not, it's time to pull back. Pause before you act. The next time you feel the urge to text, call, or check in, wait 24 hours. Use that time to do something for yourself. Read a book, take a walk, or try a new hobby. Redirecting your energy builds your inner strength. Set one boundary. Start small. Maybe it's not responding to a late-night text right away or saying no to a last-minute plan. Every boundary you set is a step toward valuing yourself. By stepping out of the overgiving cycle, you're not just changing how others see you, you're changing how you see yourself. You're no longer the woman who chases, who begs for crumbs, who waits for someone to choose her. You become the woman who knows her worth and isn't afraid to let the world feel her absence. And that, my friend, is where the real transformation begins. What if the loudest thing you could say to someone wasn't a word, a text, or a grand gesture but silence? In a world that tells us to speak up, chase what we want, and never hold back, choosing silence feels radical, even risky. But Carl Jung, the genius who mapped the depths of the human psyche, knew that silence isn't empty. It's a force. It's a mirror that forces others to confront parts of themselves they've been avoiding, what Carl Jung called the shadow. And when you wield silence the right way, you don't just reclaim your power, you spark a transformation in how others see and value you. Carl Jung's concept of the shadow is all about the hidden parts of ourselves, the fears, insecurities, and desires we push down because they're uncomfortable. When you're always available, always responding, always filling the space with your energy, you're not just giving someone your time, you're shielding them from their own shadow. Your constant presence becomes a crutch, letting them avoid the discomfort of wondering, what's she thinking? Why isn't she reaching out? Did I mess this up? But when you choose silence, you pull that crutch away. You create a void that forces them to face their own feelings, their own ego, and most importantly, their own interest in you. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Emma, a 28-year-old marketing manager who was stuck in a frustrating cycle with a guy named Ryan. Emma was always the one to keep the conversation going, sending funny memes, asking about his day, even suggesting plans when he seemed distant. She thought her effort would keep him close, but Ryan's responses grew shorter, his attention sporadic. Emma felt like she was shouting into a void, desperate for him to notice her. Then, one evening, after another one-word reply, she decided to try something different. She stopped. No texts, no calls, no subtle hints on social media. She didn't announce it or make a scene, she just went silent. At first, Emma was terrified. Her mind raced with questions. What if he doesn't care? What if he moves on? But instead of giving in to that fear, she redirected her energy. She started a yoga class she'd been putting off, reconnected with friends, and began journaling about her goals. Silence wasn't just about Ryan, it became about Emma rediscovering herself. And then, something unexpected happened. After 3 days, Ryan sent a casual, "Hey, you okay?" A week later, he was calling to check in, asking to meet up. By choosing silence, Emma had shifted the dynamic. Ryan wasn't just reacting to her absence, he was confronting his own shadow, the part of him that took her for granted. This is the power of silence, and Carl Jung's shadow explains why it works. When you stop filling the space with your words or actions, you force the other person to sit with their own thoughts. For someone used to your constant attention, that silence feels like an alarm. It's not about punishing them. It's about giving them the space to reflect. Do they miss you because they value you, or because they miss the comfort of your attention? Silence becomes a filter, revealing their true intentions. If they only wanted your energy, they'll fade away. But if they genuinely care, they'll step up, because your absence makes them feel something they can't ignore. But let's be real, silence isn't easy. It takes courage to resist the urge to text, to not check their stories, to not fill the quiet with noise. That's because silence also forces you to face your own shadow, your fear of being forgotten, your need for validation, your worry that you're not enough. Carl Jung would say this discomfort is where growth happens. By sitting with that silence, you're not just changing the dynamic with someone else, you're rewriting your relationship with yourself. You're learning that your worth doesn't depend on someone's response. It's already there, waiting for you to claim it. So, how do you harness the power of silence without falling into games or manipulation? It's about intention. Silence isn't about being cold or cruel, it's about choosing yourself over chasing someone else's approval. Here are 3 practical ways to start. Set a silence challenge. For the next 48 hours, commit to not initiating contact with the person you're giving to. No texts, no calls, no subtle posts to get their attention. Use that time to focus on something that lights you up, whether it's a hobby, a workout, or even a long nap. Delay your responses. If they reach out, don't reply right away. Even if your heart's racing to respond, wait at least a few hours or even a day to show that your time is valuable. Use that pause to check in with yourself. Am I responding from excitement or from fear of losing them? Create a self-care ritual. Silence is easier when you're filling your own cup. Start a small daily practice, maybe 10 minutes of meditation, writing down 3 things you love about yourself, or taking a walk without your phone. This builds your inner strength and makes silence feel empowering, not scary. The beauty of silence is that it speaks louder than any words you could say. It's not about disappearing to make someone chase you. It's about stepping back to make room for your own growth. When you stop feeding someone's ego with your constant presence, you give them the chance to value you for who you are, not what you do for them. And more importantly, you give yourself the chance to value you. As Carl Jung would say, the shadow isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace, because it holds the key to your transformation. So, dare to be silent. Let your absence be your voice, and watch how the world starts to listen. Have you ever noticed how the people who seem hardest to figure out are often the ones we can't stop thinking about? There's something magnetic about someone who doesn't lay all their cards on the table, who leaves you wondering, guessing, craving to know more. That's the power of mystery, and Carl Jung, the visionary who unraveled the complexities of the human psyche, had a term for what we show the world: the persona. When you're always available, always predictable, always an open book, you're wearing a persona that's easy to read, easy to take for granted. But when you step back and embrace your mystery, you become an enigma, a puzzle someone can't help but want to solve. Carl Jung's concept of the persona is like a mask we wear in social interactions, a curated version of ourselves we present to the world. In relationships, when you're constantly texting, posting every moment of your life, or jumping to respond to someone's every whim, your persona becomes too familiar. You're no longer a mystery, you're a certainty. And certainties, as comforting as they may be, don't spark curiosity or desire. They don't make someone lie awake at night wondering what you're thinking or who you're becoming. But when you pull back, when you let parts of yourself stay hidden, you invite others to lean in, to chase, to discover the real you. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Mia, a 30-year-old writer who was smitten with a guy named Ethan. Mia was an oversharer by nature. He'd send long texts about her day, post stories showing every coffee run or sunset walk, and always made sure Ethan knew she was thinking of him. She thought transparency would build closeness, but Ethan's interest seemed to wane. His replies grew sporadic, and he stopped initiating plans. Mia felt like she was losing him, but she didn't know how to fix it. Then, one afternoon, after another ignored story, she decided to try something radical. She stopped sharing. Mia didn't block Ethan or delete her social media, she just stopped curating her life for him. No more stories hinting at her feelings, no more texts to keep him engaged, no more rushing to fill the silence. Instead, she poured her energy into her writing, started a side project she'd been dreaming about, and spent her evenings exploring new restaurants with friends. She let herself be a little unpredictable, even to herself. At first, it felt unnatural. She was used to being seen, to being known. But then, something shifted. Ethan started liking her posts again, then sent a message asking what she'd been up to. A few days later, he invited her to a book launch, curious about her new project. By becoming less visible, Mia had become a mystery, and Ethan couldn't resist wanting to know more. This is where Carl Jung's persona comes into play. When Mia was an open book, her persona was predictable, safe, and let's be honest, a little too available. Ethan didn't need to wonder about her because she was always there, filling in the blanks. But when she stepped back, she shed that overly familiar persona and revealed a new Leonore that was confident, independent, and just out of reach. Carl Jung would say that by embracing her mystery, Mia was reclaiming parts of herself she'd given away. She wasn't just hiding from Ethan, she was rediscovering her own depth, her own allure. And that shift made her irresistible. The beauty of becoming a mystery isn't about playing games or being someone you're not. It's about protecting your energy, letting some parts of you stay sacred, and trusting that the right person will be drawn to the real you, not the version that's always on display. When you stop oversharing, stop chasing, stop making yourself fully predictable, you create space for curiosity to grow. And curiosity, that's the spark that turns interest into obsession, attention into pursuit. But let's be honest, being a mystery takes practice. We live in a world that rewards oversharing, where every thought and moment can be broadcast in seconds. Stepping back feels counterintuitive, even scary. What if they don't notice? What if they don't care? Those fears are real, but Carl Jung's work reminds us that true connection doesn't come from being fully known, it comes from being deeply valued, and value grows in the spaces we leave unexplored. So, how do you become a mystery without losing yourself? Here are 3 practical steps to start today. Curate your presence. For the next week, commit to a digital detox from oversharing. No stories, posts, or texts designed to get someone's attention. Instead, share only what feels authentic to you. Maybe a single post about a passion project or a quiet moment you're proud of. Embrace the unsaid. Resist the urge to explain yourself. If someone asks why you've been quiet, don't spill every detail, just smile and say, "I've been focusing on me." Let them wonder about the rest. The less you reveal, the more they'll want to know. Invest in your own world. Mystery grows when you're living a life you love. Pick one thing you've always wanted to try: a dance class, a new book, a solo trypan. Do it. When you're busy building your own story, you naturally become less predictable and more intriguing. Becoming a mystery isn't about hiding who you are. It's about revealing yourself selectively, with intention. It's about trusting that your depth, your dreams, your quiet moments are enough to captivate the right person. As Carl Jung would say, the persona you wear isn't your whole self, it's just the doorway. By keeping some rooms locked, you invite others to knock, to seek, to chase. So, dare to be a little unknowable. Let your mystery be your magnetism. And watch how the right people can't help but be drawn to you. Have you ever felt the need to explain yourself over and over, hoping someone would finally respect your time, your energy, or your worth, only to realize they still didn't get it? We've all been there, thinking that if we just say the right words, we'll get the treatment we deserve. But Carl Jung, the mastermind who explored the depths of the human soul, taught us something profound. The most powerful boundaries aren't spoken, they're lived. Through his concept of individuation, Carl Jung showed us that setting boundaries is about becoming your truest self. And when you do that, your actions speak louder than any words ever could. Individuation, in Carl Jung's view, is the journey of discovering and embracing your whole self, your strengths, your flaws, your desires, and your limits. It's about stepping away from external expectations and claiming your own space in the world. In relationships, this means knowing what you'll accept and what you won't, and letting your behavior show it. When you're always available, always forgiving, always bending to someone else's whims, you're not individuating, you're conforming. You're letting their needs define you. But when you set boundaries without words, through your silence, your choices, your absence, you're saying, "This is who I am, and this is what I'm worth." And that kind of clarity is unshakable. Let's make this real with a story. Meet Anna, a 35-year-old nurse who was dating a guy named Chris. Anna was kind-hearted and accommodating, always saying yes to Chris's last-minute plans, even when it meant cancelling her own commitments. She'd respond to his texts at all hours, even during her night shifts, because she didn't want him to feel ignored. But Chris started taking her for granted, showing up late, making vague promises, and rarely reciprocating her effort. Anna felt drained, but she kept explaining her feelings, hoping he'd change. "I just need you to respect my time," she'd say. But her words seemed to vanish into thin air. Then, one day, after Chris cancelled a date at the last second, Anna decided to stop talking and start acting. She didn't lecture him or send a long text about her frustration. She just set a boundary. She stopped accepting his spontaneous invites, politely declining with, "I'm busy, maybe another time." She stopped replying to his late-night texts right away, choosing to prioritize her sleep instead. And she started filling her free time with things that brought her joy, like hiking with friends or volunteering at a local animal shelter. Anna wasn't cutting Chris off. She was simply showing him that her time and energy were valuable. At first, Chris didn't seem to notice. But after a week of Anna's quiet boundaries, he started to shift. He texted her earlier in the day to make plans, respecting her schedule. He showed up on time for their next date, bringing her favorite coffee as a small gesture. By setting boundaries without words, Anna had changed the dynamic. She wasn't begging for respect, she was commanding it. Carl Jung would say Anna was individuating, stepping into her own power by refusing to let someone else's behavior define her worth. The magic of setting boundaries without words lies in their consistency. Words can be ignored, argued with, or forgotten, but actions, they stick. When you stop tolerating what doesn't serve you, whether it's a flaky text, a half-hearted effort, or a disrespectful attitude, you're not just protecting your energy. You're rewriting the rules of how others engage with you. And here's the key. Boundaries aren't about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about controlling yours. They're about deciding what you'll allow in your life and standing firm, even when it feels uncomfortable. But let's be honest, setting boundaries without words takes courage. It's tempting to fall back on explaining, justifying, or even arguing, because that feels safer than letting your actions do the talking. What if they get upset? What if they walk away? Those fears are real, but Carl Jung's idea of individuation reminds us that true growth comes from honoring your own needs, even when it's hard. By setting boundaries, you're not just saying no to someone else, you're saying yes to yourself. And that yes, it's the foundation of a life where you're valued, not just by others, but by you. So, how do you start setting boundaries without words? Here are 3 practical steps to try today. Identify one non-negotiable. Think about one behavior you're tired of tolerating. Maybe it's late replies, last-minute cancellations, or dismissive comments. Decide that you won't accept it anymore, and let your actions show it. For example, don't respond to a text that comes after midnight, or say no to a plan that doesn't respect your time. Practice the power of no. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable, just say it. Try, "I can't make it, but thanks for asking," and leave it at that. Your no is enough, and every time you use it, you're building your confidence. Fill your life with yeses. Boundaries are easier to hold when your life is full of things you love. Make a list of 3 activities that light you up. Maybe a workout class, a creative project, or coffee with a friend, and schedule them this week. When you're thriving, it's easier to say no to what doesn't serve you. Setting boundaries without words isn't about shutting people out. It's about inviting the right ones in. It's about showing the world and yourself that your time, your energy, and your heart are precious. As Carl Jung would say, individuation is the path to becoming whole, and every boundary you set is a step toward that wholeness. So, dare to let your actions speak. Let your boundaries be your truth, and watch how the people who truly value you start to show up in ways you never imagined. What if the most magnetic version of you isn't the one chasing love, approval, or attention, but the one who's already complete? There's a quiet power in a woman who knows her worth, who lives fully in her own light, and who doesn't need someone else to validate her existence. Carl Jung called this journey toward becoming your truest, most authentic self-individuation, And it's the key to attracting the kind of love that doesn't just see you, it honors you. When you stop seeking validation outside yourself and start building a life you love, you don't just attract others, you draw in the right ones. The ones who value you for who you are, not what you do for them. Carl Jung's concept of individuation is about integrating all parts of yourself, your strengths, your vulnerabilities, your dreams, and even your flaws into a whole, authentic person. In relationships, this means letting go of the need to be chosen by someone else and choosing yourself first. When you're constantly chasing someone's attention, texting first, bending over backward to please them, or molding yourself to fit their expectations, you're not individuating. You're fragmenting, giving pieces of yourself away to feel worthy. But when you focus on building your own world, nurturing your passions, and embracing your worth, something extraordinary happens. You become a magnet. Your energy shifts, and the right people can't help but be drawn to it. Let's bring this to life with a story. Meet Sarah, a 29-year-old teacher who spent years trying to win the affection of a guy named Jake. Sarah was always the one making compromises, skipping her weekend yoga classes to hang out with Jake, staying up late to answer his texts, even toning down her vibrant personality because she thought he preferred someone less intense. But the more she gave, the less Jake seemed to care. He'd go days without texting, cancel plans without apology, and leave Sarah wondering what she was doing wrong. She felt like she was losing herself, but she didn't know how to stop. One day, after another disappointing interaction, Sarah decided to shift her focus. Instead of pouring her energy into Jake, she poured it into herself. She signed up for an art workshop she'd always wanted to try, started running every morning to clear her mind, and reconnected with her love for teaching by mentoring a group of students. She didn't announce her change to Jake or post about it to get his attention. She just started living for herself. Slowly, Sarah felt her confidence return. She laughed more, worried less, and began to feel whole in a way she hadn't in years. And then, something unexpected happened. Jake noticed the shift. He started texting more, asking about her new projects, even showing up with thoughtful gestures. But more importantly, Sarah attracted someone new, a colleague who admired her passion and respected her time. By becoming whole, Sarah wasn't just attracting Jake's attention, she was drawing in people who saw her true value. This is the essence of attracting from wholeness, and Carl Jung's idea of individuation explains why it works. When you stop seeking external validation and start nurturing your own growth, you radiate a different kind of energy, one that's grounded, confident, and unapologetically you. This doesn't mean you become perfect or that you stop wanting love. It means you stop needing someone else to complete you. You become the source of your own joy, your own strength, and that's what makes you magnetic. People aren't drawn to you because you're chasing them. They're drawn to you because you're living a life that's full, vibrant, and true. But let's be real, embracing wholeness isn't an overnight transformation. It's a journey, and it starts with small intentional steps toward prioritizing yourself. It's about saying no to what drains you and yes to what lights you up. It's about trusting that your worth doesn't depend on someone's attention or approval. And yes, it's scary to let go of the need to be chosen, because what if no one shows up? But Carl Jung would remind us that individuation isn't just about finding love, it's about finding yourself. And when you do that, the love you attract is the kind that adds to your life, not the kind that defines it. So, how do you start attracting from wholeness? Here are 3 practical steps to try today. Rediscover your passions. Make a list of 5 things that make your heart sing, whether it's painting, hiking, writing, or even binge-watching a favorite show. Schedule time for at least one of them this week. When you invest in what you love, you build a life that doesn't need someone else to feel complete. Celebrate your small wins. Every day, write down one thing you're proud of about yourself. It could be as simple as saying no to a draining request, or as big as starting a new project. These moments of self-recognition build your confidence and remind you of your worth. Create a vision for you. Take 10 minutes to imagine your ideal life, not the one where someone else completes you, but the one where you're thriving on your own terms. What do you want to achieve? Who do you want to be? Write it down and take one small step toward it, like signing up for a class or setting a new goal. Attracting from wholeness isn't about becoming someone else, it's about becoming more of you. It's about trusting that your light, your energy, your unique spark is enough to draw in the love and respect you deserve. As Carl Jung would say, individuation is the path to becoming whole, and when you're whole, you don't chase, you attract. So, dare to build a life you love. Dare to choose yourself first. And watch how the right people start showing up, not because you're trying, but because you're thriving. You don't need to chase love, it finds you when you choose yourself. By stepping back, setting boundaries, and embracing your wholeness, you're not just rewriting your relationships, you're rewriting your life. Carl Jung taught us that true power comes from within, from knowing who you are and standing firm in that truth. So, stop giving your energy to those who don't see your worth. Let your silence speak, your mystery captivate, and your authenticity shine. You're not just enough. You're a force, a magnet, a woman who attracts what she deserves simply by being her. If this video hit home, hit that subscribe button. Share it with someone who needs this wake-up call, and drop a comment below. What's one way you're choosing yourself today? Don't miss our next video, where we'll dive deeper into unlocking your inner strength with Carl Jung's timeless wisdom. Your journey to becoming unstoppable starts now. See you in the next one.